Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode where we have Joseph with us. Welcome.
Hello. Hi.
And you'll get to know a lot about Joe today, but really, primarily you're here because you have a real journey to share with the community here about your 20-year path from like all the struggle to like getting truly past the whole struggle in the insomnia. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you, and we'll also talk about how you are actually becoming a sleep coach and you're writing a book. So for everyone that's just tuning in here, there's more to come. But first of all, just welcome, Joe. It's so nice to have you here again.
Hello. Thank you.
So I think we'll just, take it away. And so tell us as much as you would like right off the bat about like your own story from trouble sleeping, etc.
So it started probably when I was about 14, I'd say. So you've read the book. So it was at secondary school. So I moved to a new secondary school, a new private school. So complete overhaul of my life. And I didn't get on very well there. But I think that's common. I think just really typically, so I had one bad night of sleep because I was stressed, I was anxious, I was unhappy. And I had that bad night of sleep. And then it was almost classic behavior. So I was doing a lot of clock watching, forcing sleep, trying to make sleep happen. And the more I did that, the more anxious, the more stressed, the more worried I got about sleeping. And then it just sort of spiraled from there. So the next night, I thought, well, I have to sleep tonight. So then I went to bed early. And then I was worried about not sleeping. And then it just probably, for my first episode, probably about, I'd say it lasted about 3 weeks. And then it just miraculously just vanished. And I didn't understand why. But yeah, it came back after that, after about a few years.
Absolutely. So yeah, classic story. And it's just like, you were probably just happy it's gone, didn't think about it more, but in reality, it was still there, kind of in the radar, like the safe thread had honed in on it.
I think the next one probably happened about a year and a half afterwards, because I had all those I had that anxiety, I had those thoughts, I had those 3 weeks where I hadn't slept well. And I was sort of like, I can't go back there again. If I go back there again, it's going to be absolutely dreadful. So I remembered how terrible it was. So during those 3 weeks, I was probably doing, I'd take a mattress on the floor to try and sleep. I'd had hot baths to try and sleep. So really quickly, I developed a lot of obsessive, ritualistic behaviors to try and make myself sleep.
Yes.
And then when that second episode occurred, it was almost like I just completely went straight back to those learned behaviors. Even though they didn't work before, I kind of convinced myself that they had, and that I had to do something because I was so scared to go back to that same place I was.
And sorry to interrupt, but this was like, it was a year and a half later.
Probably about a year and a half before my first episode and second episode of Insomnia. After my second episode, it never really went away. But yeah, probably even after a year and a half, because I didn't understand why I had that insomnia in the first place and what to do about it, I just went straight back into that, and then it never really went away. And then, yeah, I had it for about 20 years. For a long time.
Absolutely. And before we may talk a little bit more about that whole 20-year period, but it speaks to me of like how, a few years back or something like that, when we talked about PTSD, I had this notion that you can't really have PTSD unless you've been in a real trauma, like a war zone or witnessed famine or something like that. But now that I understand the mind is like a perceived threat is just like a real, quote unquote, real threat to the brain, right? So when you say this, my mind goes into like, there was this kind of trauma, this like 3-week trauma that was still there. You were afraid of it, right?
Yeah, no, it was just the unknown, I think, because my body was doing something that I didn't understand, and I just had no clue how to get out of it. But I suppose just with everything, I thought the more I try to get out of this, the more chance there is. I suppose with anything in life, if you want to learn an instrument, if you want to learn a new sport, a new hobby, the more you try and the longer you spend at it, the better you get at it. And I just didn't understand that that wasn't the case for sleep. And I forced it. I was in, so even probably in the first week, so I would do the classics. So I was getting up, so I had to go to school, and so I'd have to get up at 7, so I would go to bed early. So I'd go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock to try and get those hours in. I thought, well, if I spend hours in bed, then I get more chance of sleeping. But the weekends is where I really slept, so I would just try, and eventually I'd fall asleep. And then I'd get up at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd get my 7 or 8 hours sleep. And so that's really where it first triggered from. I thought, well, if I'm in bed, the longer I'm in bed, the more chance I've got to sleep. And that's kind of where it just all spiraled from there. So I kind of linked those two behaviors of spending ages in bed to actually being able to sleep, because it's the weekends where I actually managed to sleep. And that's because I managed to wake up at 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So
absolutely,
you can see where it all starts from. It's these, it just your brain teaches you, because you won't sleep, you're desperate for sleep, and then you learn, oh well, if I'm in bed for 12 hours, I get it. Or if I wake up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then I get it. So you will do those behaviors to get what you're after, which is sleep, because you're desperate for it when you're not getting it.
And one thing that I read, so yeah, I've read your manuscript, your book, and one thing that comes across there, and I think we've talked about before, is how when you sort of tried something and it seemed to kind of work, but then it stops working, it's not so much that you let that go, but you kind of add things, add more and more things, and you really added a lot of things, wasn't it?
So I always thought, so if I tried something and it worked, so it made me sleep, so I would I'd sleep at a different end of my bed, or I would listen to music really lightly, or there's something on telly called teletext before the internet, so I'd squint my eyes and try and blur the picture, so I'd have that at the end of the bed. So I made up that relaxation technique, and I just went through them. And any time that I slept after that, well, I'd go, okay, well, sleeping on the north end of the bed, that worked tonight, or watching the teletext, that worked tonight, or listening to music, that worked tonight. And if it didn't work, well, I thought, well, I'm probably not doing it correctly, but it did work before, so maybe it'll work another night. So I better keep doing that one, and let's come up with a new one, and let's come up with a new one. And so I was probably doing, even within the first 3 weeks, I'd probably made up 10 different ways to make myself sleep. And then over the years, they just multiplied and multiplied, and I never got rid of any of them. I just kept hold of them all, because in case they might work, I just thought, oh, this one might work tonight. This one might. It's always like gambling, like or I'm not doing it right. I'm doing it incorrectly. Yeah.
And so, over the span of these 20 years, were there I think, was it almost like one long struggle, or were there waves where it kind of more intense and less intense, or like that?
So it was definitely, so sometimes it would get better. It never went away. And I'd always link it to what was happening in my life. So I'd think, well, so my life is going well now. So I'm doing what I want to do. I'm doing the job I enjoy. I'm living in a place I want to. So that's why I'm sleeping better. I mean, I was never sleeping well. I always had anxiety before bed, but I wasn't sleeping terribly badly, and it was always inconsistent. So I'd be waking up late and spending hours in bed. But if I was getting at least some sleep, or I was getting some nights where I was getting 7 or 8 hours, then I considered that to be pretty good. And I'd always link it to my life, what was happening in my life then. And at the same time, I'd always link it to when it was really bad. I'd say, well, well, that's because I'm unhappy now. I'm not in the place I want to be. I'm not living where I want to be. I'm not doing the job I want. I mean, I'd link my insomnia to that as well. It's, in a way, there was a half truth in it because I was sleeping worse. But as I found out now, I can be going through an incredibly stressful time and still sleep amazing because I know what to do and how to sleep. But it was literally like I was chasing it. I was chasing my sleep everywhere. So, oh, I'm not sleeping here. So if I move to this town, maybe I'll sleep here. At one point, I lived in America for a bit. You've read that in the book.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, I was teaching theatre in over in the San Juan Islands. So they're off by Seattle.
Vancouver. Yeah,
Vancouver
Seattle. Yeah.
Island. Yeah. So I was living in a teepee there, teaching theatre out in America. And then I was sleeping amazing for the first month. And I thought, well, okay, so I've cracked it, you know. If I just sleep outside in a tent, in a teepee tent on an island, then I can sleep. So I can't sleep here, no. But if I'm on an island surrounded by orcas on this island in a teepee, then I can sleep. So it was literally, my brain was linking it as sort of directly as that. And then of course that was for about a month I was sleeping, and then it all went because I didn't understand. And then I went back to the old behaviors, forcing sleep.
You know what, kind of like a little side note here, but you know what that really reminded me of was how Sasha Stevens, who I think you read her books, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment where everything changed for her was kind of similar. It was also this outdoor activity, change in scenery. But then that time for her, it led to kind of this insight like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. But when I was talking to her, I was like, why it could have just as well gone into like, oh, I have to be outdoors or do these things to sleep. But it's funny how like it can go into these two different directions. But when you're really in the thick of it, I think it always becomes like, oh, I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more.
I think it was probably just luck. Well, I now know why I was originally sleeping well there, because we had to get up at the same time every day. So the breakfast bell would go at 6:30. We had to be up. We had to get light. It was a really active job. And I think I was also in, by that time, I was also in the habit of getting up really late. So when I moved to America, time difference meant I was still getting up late, but also going to bed. So I was kind of on my own sleep schedule when I moved to America. So I was inadvertently doing the things that I should have been doing to sleep well, but I didn't have the knowledge to understand what it was that was making me sleep well. So then I just had one bad night of sleep, and then I just went, it stopped working. This island stopped working. This teepee stopped working. Right, now what do I need to do? And then it was almost after that one single night of sleeping poorly again, then I just went, right, okay, now I need to fight this. I need to struggle. I need to wrestle with this. And now I need to start making action again. And then those habits went straight back in. So spending hours in bed.
Totally. And so that was one episode that was in the book. And also another one I want to touch upon was this period when you were living, maybe it was in Switzerland, and you were starting to take these longer naps. Austria, was it?
That was in France. I was with my partner at the time. We were out ski guiding out in France. And so I hadn't napped before, but then I couldn't sleep late because we had to get up at the same time every day. So I couldn't sleep late, which should have got me into a good sleeping habit, should have got me into good behaviors. But I then thought, well, I can't sleep, so I need to then start napping. So I'd start napping after we'd done the breakfast, after we'd prepared everyone's lunches. I'd then take a 3-hour nap between, I think about 11 and 2 o'clock. And I'd out like that every time, yeah. So it was like I can't sleep at night, but I can sleep in the day, but nights, no. But the day, that's fine. And then again, my brain linked sleep to sleep in between 11 and 2, and not being able to sleep at nighttime. But
that's so interesting how, you know, we can all get these ideas that in your case, it was this, like, you didn't question whatsoever that you would sleep during that nap time, right? It was just like, of course I will sleep, or something like that.
I think just because I always had slept then, and because I had such a strong drive to sleep, so I hadn't slept at night, and because I had all this evidence before that I could sleep between 11 and 2. So I could, because I wasn't hyper aroused. So I had a strong drive to sleep. I wasn't hyper aroused. So I would basically always sleep between 11 and 2. And I think that was just a belief. I was just, because my brain said, no, you can sleep between 11 and 2. And then I could. Yes. But it told me you can't sleep at night. And so I couldn't sleep at night.
One thing that I often forget to ask, but is how, you know, during these 20 years, you were still, like, you were doing a lot of stuff. Like, you were building teepees, you started a business, you started another business, was your days still always kind of consumed about thinking about sleep, or did that also kind of come and go in waves?
It never went away. It was always just, sometimes it was like I'd made a peace with it. It was sort of like, it's not good sleep, but it's what I can do, so it's enough. So, and I thought, well, I can't sleep like everyone else, but I can sleep if I wake up late. So one night I'd felt like I didn't sleep at all, but it's like, okay, well, tomorrow night then I'm going to get 7 or 8 hours sleep. So those were the times I kind of thought it was the better times. And it was always a struggle. It was always constantly there, but it just to different degrees. Sometimes it felt like I was getting 1 hour, 2 hours a night sleep. I'd start seeing things that weren't there, and yeah, some months it would get really bad, but then I'd always link that to what was happening in my life. So obviously there's something really wrong with my brain, but it's even worse when things aren't going well in my life. So fix those things that aren't going well, and then hopefully I'll get back to this poor sleep that I was getting before, which is a lot better than this dreadful sleep that I'm getting now, because I just thought, you know, I can't sleep. Something really wrong with me and my ability to sleep.
And how about maybe one more question before we go into, like, kind of like the part where things start changing. How about did you have a lot of fatigue? Like, did you struggle a lot with that, feeling tired?
I never felt tired, not sleepy. I felt anxious, I felt stressed, I felt wired, I felt like I'd drunk 20 cups of coffee, but I never ever felt relaxed and sleepy and sort of calm, because if I felt that, then I'd have slept. So I was always really like I was just wired, I suppose, but never sleepy, never ever sleepy. No.
So after this, like, 20-year stretch of all this struggle, then at some point you decided, like, I'm going to look into CBT-I, correct?
Yeah.
What made you look in that direction? Because you had heard of it, but go ahead.
So I'd heard of it. I'd probably heard of it for a decade. So I'd had my insomnia for 20 years, and I'd heard of CBT-I probably a decade before. But my confidence in my ability to actually overcome insomnia was just so low that I just didn't. So I tried supplements, I tried acupuncture, I tried traditional therapy. I'd taken sleeping pills, and everything I tried didn't work. So even though I knew of CBT, I thought, well, how is therapy? going to help me. And that's what I thought it was. I thought it because I'd been to see counselors before, I'd been to see therapists before, and they'd give me relaxation techniques to sleep, or they'd try and go into my past and say, okay, well, what was going on at school that made you not sleep very well back then? And so the more things I tried that didn't work, just proved to me that I couldn't overcome my insomnia, and that really there wasn't anything that I could do. So I'd be happy to take a supplement. So a kiwi fruit, a supplement, I'd be happy to take that. So I thought, well, I'll take a kiwi fruit, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's only a kiwi fruit, so that's easy. Or a supplement, I'll take a supplement. By the end, I had actually, you see it behind, one of those wicker baskets. It's empty now, but that whole basket was full of supplements. I had about, I don't even know, 20, 30 different supplements that I had in that wicker basket there. Yeah, it's empty. I don't have anything else, but so yeah, everything I tried, it didn't work. So I thought, oh well, CBT-I, I didn't want to invest my time just to be sort of shut down again. It was an 8-week course that I'd have to go on, and I thought, well, I'm not going to sign up to an 8-week course just to get therapy about my insomnia, which I thought CBT-I was. I thought it was unpicking the reasons behind why you can't sleep, and I'm not going to put 8 weeks of my time in and get more stressed and more anxious for something that's going to do exactly the same as supplements and kiwi fruits and acupuncture. Right. And I had no confidence, basically. So that's why it took me so long to do it. But I think I just went, right, let's just give it a go, and we'll see. And I think I just looked at it a little bit, and I thought, oh, not actually thought about it like that way before. So I think I knew enough about it just to give me enough confidence to but even when I started it, I thought, no chance. It's not gonna. So I'm gonna do it.
So yeah, let's go there. So you finally said, well, let's try this thing called CBT-I, and what happened?
So when I went to speak to them, I still had that mindset of that my insomnia is the worst. And so you've never seen insomnia like this before. You know, that's what I expected them to say. All right, okay, well, okay, let's yeah, we've never seen a case like this before, Joseph. But basically when I told them everything I'd been doing, all the things I've been trying to force sleep, my behaviors, my anxiety around sleep. And basically all they said was, yeah, that's incredibly common. That's your sleep's about average. That's just so just to hear that, I think that actually it was like everything. I thought my insomnia was incredibly unique. I mean, maybe some of my behaviors I was doing to try and force sleep were quite unique. I used to take a mattress outside, a blow-up mattress outside sometimes, and sleep by the chicken shed. You see that in the book. So maybe some of my methods were a little bit ununique, but everything I was doing, it was like there was a name for it, and they'd heard it all before. So I suppose in the first time in 20 years, that was the first time I'd ever spoken to anyone that actually understood sleep and every thought, every feeling that I'd been having about it. But yeah, it was probably within 5-10 minutes, it was just so reassuring to know that actually what I was going through wasn't unique. Every single insomniac, it doesn't matter which insomnia they've got, if they have trouble falling asleep or waking up in the night, or just sort of sporadically waking up all the time, but pretty much every thought and everything I'd had they'd seen it 1,000 times before. So yeah, within 10 minutes I knew, but it was different. Yeah.
Great. And one more thing that I remember from the book was, like, I don't know if this was before or after you heard that your insomnia was kind of average, that you started telling kind of your life story, and then they were like, oh, stop, this is not there. It's something like that, right?
Yeah, they said, this isn't counseling. And that kind of, oh, hey, no, this is what it says it is. It says it's therapy. So you don't want to hear, they didn't want to hear anything. They didn't want to know, they wanted a bit of background, but they didn't want to know the trigger of it, because the trigger didn't matter, because of course people have trouble at school, especially if you're odd like me. You're gonna get, but you know, you're gonna have trouble at school. So they didn't want to know any of that stuff. It was just
Absolutely
straight in with the sleep knowledge, basically. Yeah.
And so I think, what helped you was, of course, like understanding sleep, and then you also did like you restricted time in bed, and but yeah, how did those 8 weeks? What were they like? How did things progress there?
So the first week of the course, it was mostly sleep knowledge, and that was really eye-opening, because I'd kind of convinced myself that I was an expert on sleep. So I'd been looking at all the supplements, learning about GABA and learning about dopamine and melatonin and serotonin, and I thought I understood sleep, but I didn't have a clue, basically. So just pretty much everything I was being told about it was completely the opposite of what I thought I understood, which was good, because nothing I'd tried up to then had worked. Sorry. So the first was just sleep knowledge, and just hearing about just hearing stuff that I'd never heard before was just incredibly, gave me a lot of confidence.
Do you remember some of those? I think one of them was that not everyone sleeps 8 hours, and you remember other things that were really like helpful to you?
So I'd never heard of the sleep drive before. I mean, that's a real basic thing, that the only thing that produces a drive to sleep is wakefulness. So the longer you're awake, the stronger that drive is to sleep. So like the longer it is before you've drunk water or eaten, the more of a drive it is to eat or to drink water. But that's a real simple thing, but just understanding that there's nothing you could do to force sleep, but hyperarousal, the sleep drive and the hyperarousal were the two main factors the only things that were causing and perpetuating your insomnia. That life circumstances don't dictate whether or not you can sleep or not. Gosh, I'm trying to think.
Oh, that was good. Those are really big ones. So you started learning, and and then I think, if I remember, like you came back, and that's when they said, okay, we're going to do this thing where you're going to spend less time in bed, you're going to get up early, etc. And after a little while, that started to change things, right?
So that was, it took about, so the first 2 weeks was sleep scheduling. So that was getting up at the same time every day. That was stimulus control. So going down, leaving because I had a huge anxiety of the bedroom and the bed. So just knowing that had that permission to leave the bed and do something that I found relaxing and enjoyed. It wasn't making me sleep, but I wasn't in what I used to call it my torture chamber. So it was like I had to be in bed, because if I wasn't in bed, I was going to miss that opportunity to sleep. So if I fight it, if I plead with it, if I beg it, bargain with it, all of those things I was doing in bed, then eventually it would come, because sometimes it did. But just knowing that I could leave that and go downstairs and do something I found relaxing, it wasn't making me sleep, but it just was an escape from that really anxious, stressful time. So that was really helpful, just to be able to leave the bedroom and do that. And yeah, getting up at the same time every day and only going to bed when I was sleepy which I found one of the hardest things to do, because I didn't yet know what sleepiness was, because I hadn't really experienced sleepiness for 20 years, because it didn't kind of come, it didn't pick me up and, you know, make me, it was like I felt, well, I'm never sleepy anymore. So that was the harder one. But the stimulus control and the waking up at the same time every day was the ones that I could do. And it was the first 2 weeks. I didn't sleep well, but there were some nights where I saw some improvements, and it was just reassuring to kind of hand over control to someone or something else. So rather than doing everything else I thought I knew, it was just really nice just to have 3 rules, just to kind of hand responsibility over to. So those were my first 3 weeks. And then, yeah, I went on to the bedtime restriction part. Which, yeah, that was really dramatic, actually. But for me, I think for my sleep, I had such because it was so unregulated. So I'd wake up late because I had my own business, so I could sleep in. So I had such an unregular sleep drive. But as soon as I started restricting it to a window, probably, yeah, after about 5 days, that's when I really learned just how powerful the sleep window was for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like a night. It was a massive sea change. It was like witchcraft. It was. I've been trying to force and make sleep happen for 20 years, and within 5 days of bedtime restriction, I was trying to basically try to stay awake, and it sort of proved to me how that sleep is a drive state, and that you can't force it. That was the thing that proved to me all the sleep knowledge was actually something real, something tangible. It was incredibly astounding, actually.
Wow. So powerful hearing this. And you know, I just want to spend 1 second more here on this, because one of the things that really is tricky is when people say, but I never feel sleepy. I just never feel sleepy. And then a generally helpful advice is to be like, don't go to bed unless you feel sleepy. But then if someone's like, but I never feel sleepy, then it becomes this like, how am I going to do this? I have to, and then it can lead to like monitoring yourself. Like, am I sleepy? Am I not sleepy? Which is of course not helpful. So I think in your case, it just became a matter of like spending less time in bed, giving yourself less opportunity. And eventually it kind of came to you, like you started feeling it.
I think, so I can understand why the sleep window might not, because you might get, but I think because I had this time, I can't go to bed before 12:30. So that kind of took the pressure off of actually the fear of, so I thought, well, I can't be sleeping now. So then I think that hyperarousal went down. So, well, I'm not allowed to be sleeping. So, and I think just because it was, I had such a strong drive to sleep created from it, that I really did understand what sleepiness was, because my sleep drive was just so incredibly strong. It gave me that. So even if I was hyper aroused, it sort of overcame that. And then, of course, that's not the end game. That's not how you sleep. You don't have to make yourself so sleepy, but your sleep drive is going to override your anxiety. But what that did was that the behavior change first kind of gave me that certainty. It gave me that sort of dramatic event where then helped me afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And then, and I think, you know, if I remember correctly, like at the end of the 8-week course, it was by no means that you were sleeping great, but you had learned and seen a lot of things, and you kind of saw the path in front of you. You were doing quite a lot better, correct?
Yeah. So it wasn't that I finished 8 weeks and then I was free of my insomnia. But what was different is that I completely understood insomnia now. So I knew I could never go back to that point before the course, because it was like there I was completely blind. I didn't have a clue why I was sleeping well when I slept well. And so just by the end of the course, I had such a good grounding in how to sleep. I knew that it gave me the confidence that I could never go back to ever going back to as bad as I was. And I suppose just proving to myself with the sleep windows and the fact that I did sleep, pretty well during that course, but proving to myself that I could sleep really helped, because at the time I was going through an incredibly difficult time in my life when I decided to do. So I was going through a divorce at the time, which usually I'd have thought, I'm never going to be able to sleep. Had I not have done that sleep course, I thought, well, I'm going to sleep for 1 hour a night, 2 hours a night. And this would have been a time where I'd have forecasted that I would have probably had some of the worst sleep in my entire life. So to have it proved to me that I could be going through something incredibly stressful, incredibly difficult, and yet still sleep incredibly well during that sleep course, kind of proved to me that it is behaviors and it is hyperarousal, and that it really, if I just keep going and keep going down that path, eventually I would eventually
exactly
reach that point where I don't. But I'm not even sure when the time was when I said, I'm now no longer an insomniac. I think it was just gradually it got better, and occasionally I'd have some speed bumps, as you call them.
Yeah, I really wanted to touch on that, because that's, I think, probably the last thing that I really want to touch on from the book. But it is that sometime, I think a couple of weeks out of the course, you did have quite a significant speed bump where you almost like went back to a lot of the behaviors. And I think that's so important for people to hear, because people are like, understandably, it's so frustrating, but it's so common. It is so common, and you can do really well. So tell us about that speed bump and how you moved past it.
Probably a few months after the course finished, and this was so just again, that was a stressful time in my life, and I suppose my brain I went back into those old thought patterns, old behaviors, to try and force sleep, because I think it's almost as if I've got it, I've made it, I've finally managed to grab what I've been after for 20 years, and then it had been snatched away from me. So I thought, well, I had something massive to lose now, so I don't want to let this go. So I want to now sleep well. And then I suppose because I'd done those behaviors and had those thought patterns for 20 years, it was almost easy to go back to them. And yeah, I probably slept as badly as I had before the course even started. So for about 2 weeks, I went right back to where I'd started from. But to get out of it, I'd been keeping a journal after my course had finished, where I'd write down all my successes. So not just, I slept 7 hours, or I got up, and even if I slept poorly, I got up, I got light, I got active and had a great day, even if I didn't sleep well. So I put that down as a success, or if I was less anxious in bed, and just generally just tracked how well I'd been sleeping after the course had finished. And yeah, I just picked up that diary again, read through it, and just realized how well I had been sleeping. And I compared my old behaviors and my behaviors I'd learned on the course to the ones I was currently doing, and then just thought, well, on here, so on these behaviors in this diary, these are the behaviors and these are the thought patterns of somebody who was sleeping well. And what you're doing now those are the behaviors, those are the thought patterns of someone who sleeps poorly. And then it was just quite easy. So within about 3, as soon as I put those old behaviors back into place, along came the new thought patterns that I'd learned on the course. And then within about 3 to 4 days of putting those old behaviors, then my sleep returned back to normal. And in a way, it was actually incredibly helpful, because it sort of taught me that actually it was just another reinforcement of how powerful and how incredibly effective these behaviors were. So that when I stopped trying to force sleep, and when I got up at the same time every day, and when I went to bed when I was sleepy, then I slept, it was just another reinforcement of just how. So at the time, I was devastated, because I thought I'd have to start all over again. But it was actually, yeah, incredibly helpful.
Yeah, 100%. You worded it so well, and that's what I always start to tell people as well, is that these speed bumps can truly be that kind of last thing you need to experience and get past before you truly start that path to liberation from a struggle. So yeah, perfect. And now, at what point? So for anybody tuning in here, like, I think we connected, I believe it was like November last year, and I sort of out of the blue got an email from you saying you were interested in becoming a sleep coach, and we sent some emails back and forth, and then you joined, I believe it was in January. And now, at what point did that idea come to you that I want to help other people? It wasn't, so probably about, so I found you a year and a half, maybe I'd sort of, but I've been thinking about it 6 months after the course, but a huge part of me didn't want to do it, because I thought I've spent 20 years of my life obsessing about sleep, worrying about sleep. Do I want to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years now thinking about sleep again? But it just kept on something that kept coming back to me. Any other, so I've always had my own business. At any time I thought of doing anything other than sleep coaching, I just didn't get excited about it, and didn't, because I was already at the time, so if I was like a magpie for insomniac. So if even someone that said, oh, I had a bit of trouble sleeping last night, I'd zoom in on them and then try and find out exactly how much and if they've got insomnia, and if they didn't, then I'd try and find. So I was already, and I was volunteering as well, so I was doing talks at in the local town halls, and I was on Facebook forums, and so I was already sort of coaching people. So I was doing it for free, and then I thought, well, it's clearly something that I need to do, so I'll get stuck in. Absolutely, totally. And so yeah, just I think just a few more things. One is like so you're writing a book. It's going to be called You Can Sleep Too, correct? Yep. And we already, it's your journey as well as a lot of sleep education in it, and it's I've read it. It's really, really good. And when do you think it's going to be out? So we are, so probably end of April 2021, I imagine. So I'm working on the front cover now. It's at the copy editors at the moment, so we're looking at end of April 2021. Right. Super exciting. Yeah. And then how are you envisioning your coaching practice or coaching business? So initially I'll be starting off with so I imagine most of the people I'm going to get are people that have read the book, so I'm going to get most of my people from the book, and then so they're going to have a good background in the sleep knowledge section of that, and then I'll just be doing one-to-one talks. And then coming up probably around about end of 21, I'm going to be developing an 8-week sleep course. So I'll be doing one-to-one Zoom coaching sessions with people for helping their sleep. So yeah, a lot of so I'll be using a lot of NATO philosophy in that. I'll be using stimulus control, and so
aspects of CBT-I, but not with the same level of tracking time.
Yeah, the time component, exactly.
The time component of that, because the timeless night, I think, is probably one of the most helpful things when you're not obsessing and worrying about the amount of time you're sleeping and you're not clock watching during the night. I found that incredibly helpful for my own sleep. So that's
absolutely wonderful. It sounds fantastic. So I think that's that pretty much sums it up. It's an amazing journey, amazing story, and I'm super excited about the book and your course, your coaching, and I hope to have you back here maybe when the book is launched, or doing open class and all kinds of things.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
All right, so thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks again so much, Joe, for checking in. Bye.